Good morning, Land Talker TV followers. Jim Rothermich here, Iowa Appraisal in Des Moines, Iowa. We're here with another episode of Land Talker TV. I've got a really good guest today, and I'll introduce him in a minute. But first, I want to talk about Land Hero. Land Hero is a subscription-based website that is, I work with Stephen Broxius, and it is a way to access my sales. I'm going to pull that window up here. And it's a way to access my sale database. And it can if you buy a subscription, it could be either statewide or it could be a crop district or it could be just certain counties. But if you want to analyze data fast, this is the way to do it. And so if you want to check it out, go to www.landhero.us and there's a demo there and you'll be able to check it out. And then there's a phone number for pricing if you want to do that too as well. So, all right. Well, I have got a really good guest today. I've got Ben Harshyne with Whitetail Properties. I've known Ben for quite a while, just calling him up and confirming land sales in his area that he works. And he's always really good about answering phone calls and answering my questions. And he does a really good job of marketing recreational tracks. And welcome to Land Talker TV, Ben.
Thank you, Jim. I appreciate you inviting me.
You bet, you bet. Well, Ben, a lot of people look at my stuff, and it's basically geared towards crop production. Most stuff I'm reporting on is highly tillable Iowa farm ground, and that's what my life kind of revolves around. But one thing people do talk about and ask me questions about is recreational tracks. And you're the guy I want to talk to about that because I know you know this market as good as anybody. And so let's answer some of those questions today and give people an idea what's kind of going on in the recreational market. Because one thing I have found out, those recreational tracks, if it's the right piece of ground, sometimes they'll sell higher than crop producing ground. So that sort of amazes me what people are willing to pay for that if it's the right piece of property. So Ben, kind of introduce yourself, talk about your hometown, where you grew up, and your schooling, and your family, etc.
Okay, will do. I was born and raised in Western Pennsylvania, about an hour east of Pittsburgh in just old coal mine country, the town of Indiana, Pennsylvania, and uh, grew up in the country. My folks had 10 acres, and mom and dad raised me to hunt and fish, and my grandparents had a hobby farm. They had a couple horses and a potato patch and a huge garden, a tiny little pond with big bass in it. So I really grew up in the country. It impacted my life in the beginning, and then I graduated, or from high school I went to Penn State, and so I
Oh, cool.
sometimes that's not the best thing to say when you're introducing yourself out here in Iowa is, I was a Nittany Lion, but nonetheless, my mom was a Nittany Lion. She said, if you're going to go anywhere, you're going to go to Penn State. And so I graduated with a degree in cartography in mapping.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. Cool.
yeah.
Cool.
And I took that degree and I worked for 7 years in Northern Virginia, in the Washington, D.C. area, in the intelligence community, specifically with the National Counterterrorism Center. And I made maps for briefings, for terrorism briefings. So it was an incredible part of my life. And I learned a lot. In the middle of all of that, I started a side business because I had a unique work schedule, where I started a side business making maps for people's private farms and hunting properties. And the name of the business is Huntera Mapping. And my wife and I started that in 2009. And I met, there was one account that I started that really changed the trajectory of our small mapping business, Whitetail Properties Real Estate. And I negotiated some advertising on our television show at the time, and it just ignited our small, niche mapping company to the point where in 2014 we decided to pack up, sell pretty much everything we had, and move to the Midwest to grow our small business. And we picked Southeast Iowa to be in. There were a couple different reasons why, but that's really what led me out here to Iowa, was not to sell land. It was to grow my small business, and ultimately my biggest passion is bow hunting whitetails. And there's really no better place, in my opinion, for the pinnacle whitetail experience than Southern Iowa. I had a couple really good friends in Western Illinois, so I wanted to be near them, but I didn't want to live in Illinois. And I wanted to be close to Whitetail Properties headquarters because they were a big client for us at the time.
Hmm.
Our print shop was in Peoria, Illinois, so it made sense out here. But my passion for whitetails is ultimately what brought us to Iowa. And a couple years later, they recruited me to become a land specialist for them. And it's been I guess nine years now. I started in 2017. So
2017. And your wife's from Pennsylvania too, is that right?
yeah, we both went to the same high school. We actually met in college, but we went to the same high school together, and I graduated with her brother. So he and I are the same age. But yeah, so Pennsylvania is my roots, my true
Yeah,
roots. My
yeah,
folks
no.
folks still live there, but we're out here in Iowa, um, kind of doing something a little more unique than the traditional coal mining that was in my family and in the steel industry in the past.
Right, 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 right. And so now what town do you live in now, Ben?
So we live in North Liberty,
North
which is
Liberty.
a
Okay.
part of Iowa City fringe area.
Right.
And I work as a land broker from Iowa City west along Interstate 80 and then south to the Missouri line. So it's the true southeast quadrant of Iowa.
Sure, sure, sure. I've got your profile up here off website, up Whitetail Properties website, Ben, and there's Ben's contact information. And you got how many kids, Ben?
I have one, well, a son Jack. He's 10 years old.
Okay, I just pulled that picture up, and so he's about probably 9 or 10 right here, right?
Yeah, that was a couple years ago. First family picture on a farm we bought in 2023. It was.
Oh,
So yeah, we
cool.
took that picture in the fall, and yeah, he's my buddy.
Good, good, good. Yeah, and he likes deer hunting, and uh, what's his favorite hunting, Ben?
He's got 3 bucks now. He shot a gobbler a couple years ago. Um, but he really likes the equipment that we use on the farm. That's probably his greatest passion is the equipment. But he loves to deer hunt. We in gun season we have a good time. We shoot a lot of does. I believe in doe management, keeping the herd in check,
Agree, agreed.
and he loves to take part in that.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's one thing that I've noticed is people don't keep those does thinned down enough. For me, anyway.
Oh yeah,
People have a different way of looking at things, but
yeah,
I think the ratio needs to be 1 to 1, and so a lot of farms just have way too many does, in my opinion. So
no doubt.
um, now you're an ALC accredited land consultant. Talk about that, Ben. How long have you done that?
Yeah, Realtors Land Institute is a an organization that Whitetail Properties strongly believes in. The accredited land consultant designation is a accumulation of experience, sales volume, and then a commitment to education, particularly on topics that make you excel in the field of land. And I tried to achieve that as soon as I could. I think I've been an
Yeah.
ALC for 5 or 6 years now.
Yep.
It's a and I'm proud to say that Whitetail Properties has more ALCs than any other land brokerage in the country, and that's a big part of our goal as a company.
Yeah, sure. No, and I'm an ALC as well. And basic reason for me is the networking opportunities. It's just yet unlimited networking opportunities. And so it's definitely a feather in your cap as a realtor, in my opinion, Ben. Now you're also a FAA Part 107 remote drone pilot. Talk about
That,
that for a
yeah,
second, Ben.
that's a mouthful there. Yeah. So certified drone pilot, which is a very important tool for filming our listings. Drones a great way to showcase the landscape. The world of drones is becoming increasingly interesting. It's a pretty hot topic. I know in the deer world. I have mixed feelings about drones in the whitetail world. It can be a valuable tool when used right, but I don't have my drone pilot for that. It's specifically for being able to fly the drone for commercial purposes. Um, and then the other two would be the NDA Deer Steward National Deer Association. So back in the day, but prior to NDA was the Quality Deer Management Association, which my company was a big advocate of quality deer management. There's a lot to that, but this is recognizing a commitment to the passion of the whitetail and the land that they rely on. So a number of years ago, I went through the deer steward courses to try to learn as much as I could about not just hunting deer. It's not just about hunting. It's about providing a great place for them and keeping the herd in check, creating goals and trying to pursue those goals. It's kind of a full package experience. And so then combined, the ALC and the Deer Steward courses combined to for a recognition that our company has called the certified Whitetail Properties certified land specialist, I think it is. And it's just a
Hmm.
combination of those. Yeah, yeah, right there. Yep.
Yep, yep, right there. Yeah, no, good stuff. Um, Now, Ben, as far as the drone technology, that's kind of still new technology. I don't know how many years ago it's been, over 10, maybe 15 years ago, drones were just coming out, and there were some people that was against it. Um, but it seems like now, if you don't have a drone video of your farm, you've kind of fell behind. Would you agree with that, or can you speak to that some, Ben?
Yeah,
How
and
has that changed the real estate, in your opinion?
yeah, when I first started, it was 2017. I got a drone right away. I thought it would be a great investment. It really wasn't used very much.
Right. It was
And
new.
that first one was in this massive Pelican case that was 35 pounds, 40 pounds, and it was a huge drone. You had to put the individual propellers on every time you wanted to launch it. And I launched it from the bed of my truck or the roof of my truck, and it would last 15 minutes. The technology has really dramatically improved. Our drone now is cinema grade. I mean, they use the same drones to film scenes in movies. It has an incredible lens on it, but it'll fit in my backpack. And so, that's it's now become a standard tool. It's hard to be a land agent and not use one. So it's just another arrow in the quiver, as we say.
Right.
Where it's really cool, I think, is in the ag industry. Spraying. I had a drone spray some CRP, some expiring CRP for me a couple years ago, and the precision of that thing is incredible. And it's nice to be able to get into the field under not ideal conditions. Say it's wet, maybe you just planted something and you don't want to drive over it, but you still have to apply herbicide or fungicide, and the drone is incredible technology in that regard.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Um,
good stuff.
yeah.
That's just amazing how that changed the industry and did it pretty quickly. And I can remember back when it was first coming on, the resistance to that was just there was a lot of it. And so no, good
Yeah.
stuff. Now you was talking about maybe there's some mixed feelings. Is there a downside to that maybe I don't know
Well,
about?
in the deer world, there are some cameras being used. So there's an emerging business in the form of deer surveys, right? Using the drone to survey deer, specifically with a thermal camera.
Hmm.
And that's very good to understand the population and the population dynamics of a farm. They use them to count deer, and not only count the deer, but count how many are yearlings, are does, are immature bucks, or mature bucks. And so that's extremely valuable data to make really specific management goals or strategies from. Um, but these cameras can reach and read the tines on a buck from over a half a mile away. And to me, I see it as a valuable tool, but at some point, where do you draw the line from the sacredness of the whitetail or in our wildlife? The unknown is what really, you know, is what started it all, right? For so many. And so it seems to be almost cheating whenever you are able to understand everything that's going on your farm with a drone. Again, that can be a good thing, but when used improperly, and
Yep.
these drones are available to anybody. When
Right.
used improperly, you can hit the cheat code and find that big deer any time of the year, right? And
Yep.
so over time things will hopefully evolve for the better, so it's not maybe it's more regulated or it's more watched over or something, but I can see the benefits from understanding the deer herd, and then I can see the detriment to being tempted to use it to get to the end goal quicker than how it should be.
Yep. Yep. No, no, no. Good stuff. Good stuff. I
You know,
absolutely. That's the way about way anything is. If you,
yeah, one other thing, I was in the stand 1st of November 2 years ago, and I had a nice buck in front of me. I wasn't going to shoot him, but I was just sitting there enjoying him in the morning. It was just right when sun was coming up, and I could hear in the distance a drone, and the drone got closer, and it got closer, and next thing you know, it's hovering right over my this little open
oh
patch
wow,
I'm hunting in. And
wow.
it just ruined my day. And I'm sure that is not I'm not the only one that experienced that. And so, um, yeah. So that's my feeling on the drone. But it is a great tool for showcasing land. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, yeah, no, good stuff. Just real briefly, Ben, talk about Whitetail Properties. I've got their website, their website up right now. When did it start and who started it?
Yeah, 2007, Dan Perez, Wes McConnell, Paul Sawyer, Pete Alfano, and Rob Saunders are the original founders of Whitetail Properties. All of those guys would say that Dan Perez is really the godfather of the true recreational land market here in America. Dan paved the way for this market
Yeah.
to go from wasteland
Yep,
for the farmer that literally it was called wasteland.
that's
I
right.
still am
That's
I
right.
still hear that term every once in a while, in showcasing it for recreational purposes, the value of hunting, the value of wildlife, the value of timber, living in the country, that rural lifestyle. And we started in 2007, brokered in Illinois with Dan, Iowa, and Missouri, just a few agents, and it's now grown into. I mean, we just finished our annual sales or land summit, the family picnic, whatever you want to call it, and there were 460 of us now brokered across 43 states, 46 states, I think it is. And it's what's cool is that I feel like I have been part of this company almost from the beginning. With it being my first account, I would work with a lot of the agents to make maps for closing gifts whenever they would sell the farm. And Dan, um, you know, Dan is retired, but all of us practice and our businesses thrive because of what he taught us. And we have core values, and we hire agents that naturally we feel like it adhere to that. We don't target people with real estate experience. We look for people that have a passion for land and in the goal of working hard, working for people, being hungry, but doing it the right way. And that all comes from Perez.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, you guys have been very successful. And like you said, at one time, that was looked at as wasteland, as no value, and you guys have put a premium on that land. There's no doubt that land is worth something for sure. And then your company was kind of driving the bus on that at the beginning, and still does today. So kudos to that. And then, I've seen some posts on Facebook by your company, and it looks like your annual meeting is really good. You guys got a lot of good speakers, and I seen Ted Nugent was at your annual meeting.
yeah, that was pretty wild to see him. Every year they try to have a unique guest speaker, and uh, with America 250 or 250th year of freedom in our country, it was appropriate to have
Yeah,
him
yeah.
speak. He's a
Oh yeah.
passionate outdoorsman, a passionate American. So that was pretty neat. Last year it was the Roy and Ryan Cedars, the founders of Yeti, the two brothers that founded
Okay.
Yeti, and they talked about their origin story with Yeti and what it became in business. They're great clients for Whitetail Properties, and so every year, we have a guest speaker and seminars, and it's just a big time to celebrate the success of our company, but elevate and continue to push each other as well.
Yeah, it looks like a really interesting event and good for everybody. And then what all services do you guys provide?
Yeah, we're uh, traditionally land listings, and then in the last 5 years, we developed an auction division
Yep.
called Ranch and Farm Auctions,
Yep.
and it's exploded for us as a way to offer all of the tools of land
Yep.
brokerage to our clients. So there's the traditional listings that live on whitetailproperties.com, our auctions that are on ranchandfarmauctions.com. I have a couple auctions coming up myself as the territory agent in Southeast Iowa for Whitetail Properties. I have the ability to talk with a family and figure out what is the best avenue for their goals and what is the best for way to sell this farm or this piece of ground. And so we have two great tools there.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's definitely ace in your hand. If you got to get it out, you got it. So for sure, for sure. Ben, let's talk about the Iowa recreational market. Talk about the how the current market is right now.
It's a tricky one, is what I tell sellers. I would say it's in general, it's stable from the amount of transactions that are going on, but the values are widening. Um, and I think there's a number of factors that we could really dive into there. The big driver is supply and demand. Another driver is maybe the stagnation of the amount of interest because of interest rates. And that kind of has a domino effect on the desirability of land. But in general, I would say that um, the amount of ground that's trading hands is similar to the last few years in the recreational land market. I know we're having a very similar year this year, my team and I, compared to last year. And last year was our best year ever.
What?
So yeah,
Really?
yeah.
As far as volume goes?
Yes. For and that's for me and my team in Southeast Iowa.
Okay.
So that doesn't necessarily translate into the what is the land market, because Ben's team's killing it, right? That's maybe a reflection of my business, but more so. But you've got to price these farms right to sell them. You've got to price them right. Uh, a few years ago when the market was going up in say 2021 to 2023 for rec ground, everything would, I mean, you could put a price, an asking price on a farm and it was bought, even if it was just a mediocre piece of hunting ground. And we can get
Uh-huh.
into what is the, are they all the same? And they're certainly not. And that's what's really becoming evident now is that if you have a mediocre piece of rec ground, you better price that thing right because it doesn't help to list it high and maybe you'll fool somebody with a really good price and then work your way down if you don't get interest. I mean, working your way down is just not going to create the buzz, right, of a new listing that comes out fair priced. And the same can be said for real estate across the country. It's not just hunting land in southern Iowa. Um, but on the other hand, when interest rates went up, inflation, uh, there were some people saying, "Oh, the market's going to tank," and no, it didn't. It didn't at all. It's a finite resource, and hunting ground in Iowa, at least, is the most finite resource, the most limited
Hmm.
resource. So it comes back to supply and demand. The demand may not be as strong right now, but the supply is keeping it to the point where people aren't losing money if they bought a farm a couple years ago and are trying to sell it again. You know.
Right. You know, Ben, as far as my thing is keeping track of the high quality tillable land here in Iowa. And I run my first 6 months analysis of this year, and the market's very stable compared to last year. It hasn't moved.
Hmm.
And which is surprising in my book. But the peak of the land market as far as crop farms goes was 2022. And as soon as those interest rates started creeping up, that's when that started cooling it off. And but it didn't cool off that much from the last super cycle we had in the 2013, 2014 years. We was in that super cycle, and then the market kind of cooled off about 20% over a period of a year or a little more.
Hmm.
This cycle's not going to be that much. It's, maybe 10% is it. It seems like it's flatlined.
Hmm.
And it sounds like maybe that recreational market's kind of following the same pattern. Do I have that right, or do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, yeah. If you would look at the graph from 2020 to 2023, you would see a really quick, steep incline in values. Pre-COVID, 3,000 to 3,500 an acre. When the dust settled at the absolute peak, high fives to mid 6,000s per acre, almost doubled in price, right? And then over the last 3 years, you've probably have seen pretty much flat. And then in some micro markets, definitely a little bit of a drop.
Uh-huh.
Maybe
Right.
not $1,000 an acre. And of course, every piece of ground has its intricacies, but the average price per acre probably dropped somewhat more in south central Iowa for rough ground than further east into true southeast Iowa, less of it, a better, closer buyer pool to a local buyer pool where it really, we didn't see hardly any drops and maybe even a little bit of a jump for the stuff further east. And I think that is supply and demand and then the desirability of getting to that property. There's a lot more choices in South Central. So some people would argue that the market went down. Some people would argue that it's been the same. And then there's a couple loudmouths that'll say, "Oh, I made all, it's at an all-time high." And so I think it's a little bit in between, but there are intricacies to these different
Right, right,
locations.
right. Well, as far as crop ground goes, if you got a high quality piece of dirt, it's probably going to sell as good as it did in 2022. I can't say that for medium or lower quality farm.
Hmm.
Those are definitely tougher to sell right now in this environment. There's no question about it.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
Um, so, as far as on the crop ground, the buyer pool is local farmers. That's the biggest one. And then there's some local investors, and then there's
Mhm.
other companies out here that's looking to buy ground that will not let a good farm fall through the cracks at auction or whatever. Or, they're looking for a good buy. And they kind of keep a floor underneath the market. Talk about your buyers on recreational tracks.
Yeah, so our buyers, uh, 15 to 20 years ago, when my partner Rich Baugh was breaking into Iowa and selling land, this type of land, the preference, okay. So for those who don't know, as a non-resident hunter to hunt Iowa, you need to have preference points. Iowa's broken up into different zones, and those zones require, a different level of odds to be able to say bow hunt. So my dad bow hunted with me this fall, and it took him 6 preference points. So it took him 7 years since the last time he hunted here as a non-resident. Um, 15 years ago, it only took maybe 2 points, right? Every few years, you could get a tag to hunt in Iowa. So there was a larger non-resident landowner pool here.
Hmm.
Um, to where we are now, Iowa's as desirable as ever for the non-resident
Right.
to have a destination hunt here, and there's no preference or advantage for somebody to own land in Iowa if they have a different state. They play the same game. So what I'm getting at is that over time, our national buyer pool has really shrunk. There are still some non-residents that own land here. Then it can be a great investment. Maybe they share it with other people. Um, but that national buyer pool has shrunk. And the majority of my clients by far are Iowans. They can be local right to that area. They can be in a larger metro area like the corridor of Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, Quad Cities, uh, anywhere in Des Moines. I've sold many hunting properties to guys from northern Iowa. They're in that flat black country and they want to come down and get into the rolling hills of
Right.
southern Iowa and have some good hunting. So my client is the Iowan, and that
Okay.
can be anybody from, the buyer is anywhere from somebody that is in their 30s to still selling ground to people in their upper part of their life. So
Yeah.
it's changed over the years though, and that's
Right. That's
fine.
what it sounds like. If those out-of-staters can't get tags, but every 6, 7 years, that kind of takes them out of the market, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, and there were people that justified owning it because as they were accumulating points for maybe bow season, they were allowed to party hunt, right? They would have their neighbor over to come and hunt on their property with them and legally use their tag. That's called party hunting. Well, 2 years ago, the Iowa DNR said there's no more party hunting
Okay.
for
Gotcha.
the non-resident, and I get it. There were people abusing the system, I'm sure, taking full advantage, and so when they took that away, that eliminated the last justifiable reason for many people to own land here as a non-resident. Until something changes with land ownership and when somebody can shoot a deer on their farm, it's not as a hot ticket item anymore, you know.
Did that affect the prices you were getting when those out-of-staters
So
kind of
that
got
effect
pushed out, or how did that work?
that there back to supply and demand, there were certainly people that said, I'm out of here. My farm is for sale, right? But there wasn't enough of them to really affect the market. If there were hundreds all of a
Yep.
sudden, that's going to drive the price down quicker. But where we saw it is the traditionally hot area for the non-resident landowner was South Central Iowa.
Uh-huh.
Talking Appanoose County, Monroe County, Wayne, Lucas, this area here that's halfway in between Iowa City and Des Moines, as far south as you can go. So it's the furthest away, right? Deep southern Iowa, God's country, God's gift to the whitetail hunter. This is where a lot of non-resident people own ground over the years. And so that market has weakened.
Uh-huh.
It has. So the best value right now, in my opinion, is South Central Iowa, or the western part of where I sell ground. Monroe County, Appanoose County. You can get amazing hunting ground there for cheaper now than if you go again. You go further towards one of these cities to Des Moines or Cedar Rapids, Iowa City, you get closer there, that's going to just continue to be desirable for the local people that live there, right? So um, uh, it's interesting, but there's no doubt that prior to the change in the shotgun tag rule, that ground was stronger to the tune of
Yeah.
sometimes $1,000 an acre stronger. I mean, there were several
Wow.
farms we sold in
Wow.
Monroe County in the well into the 6,000s per acre for stuff that is making hardly any income. It's just banging hunting farms. And, we just sold 160 acres the other day for 5,100 an acre, you know. And then that's one farm, right? That doesn't make the market, but in general, that never would have happened a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, interesting stuff. As you shrink that buyer pool, that does have an effect on land values. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Um, Go ahead, Ben.
Well, um, Dan Perez spoke at our meeting 2 days ago, and he talked about markets. You're not always going to have a rising market, right? You have to have these peaks and valleys. Markets have, uh, uh, they rise and fall, and that's healthy. That's how
Right.
capitalism works,
Right.
right? And so I wouldn't say we're on the steep downhill slope of land values with hunting ground here, but it seems to be hanging on with the peak prices. It better have all of the ingredients that somebody's looking for. And I have sold those this year. I have
Mm.
sold very, very strong sales for hunting ground. And then right down the road, it's ice cold, because
Yep.
it doesn't have what people were looking for.
Yep.
So
Yep. Yep. Is the reason why Iowa did that on that point system you're talking about, is that to limit the amount of hunters that comes into Iowa and get the age structure up on those bucks? Is that why they did that?
I never was, I don't know the answer to that. I, why they changed that policy. I know that there were certainly people abusing it, I'm sure,
Okay.
but
That could have been it.
you know, um, it's a good thing to be shooting deer. It's a
Right.
good thing. I
Right.
think that our population is more out of whack from say EHD crushing the population down naturally, compared to not as many people shooting deer in this big surge of overpopulation, right? Um, so whether it's less people shotgun hunting, less people doing deer drives, it seems like that population can increase a lot faster post DHD. So, anyways, I guess that doesn't really answer your question of why they did it, but I couldn't tell you,
Do you think
particularly.
it helped the age structure of the bucks to get them older, or it sounds like maybe you're saying it, we got to control, it was a good control, population control method, maybe is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
certainly. Yeah, yeah. I think that the quality of animal is reflective of how much stress they have at the social level, and it's a good thing to shoot deer. If you're trying to grow a big trophy animal, you want to get him to 6 years old, and
Absolutely.
he doesn't get to six when he's killed at three
That's
or,
right.
or four. Well, the problem is they can have big racks when they're 3 and 4, and people that have limited hunting, or maybe they don't care as much about that, but they're just going to shoot that nice buck. That's really the ultimate driver. But anyways, the key to growing big deer is not shooting anything.
Right, right, right. Well, as somebody that hunts in both in Iowa and Missouri, what I notice is just the age structure of the bucks in Iowa is so much better than it is down in Missouri, and they have more liberal hunting opportunities down there for outstaters and
Mhm.
in-staters as well. So, and have you can use high-powered rifles. So now, as you know, most people think their property's worth, you might have sold a farm for, 6,000 plus an acre maybe not even have any income. And so that person that wants to sell their farm heard about that and they say, okay, mine's worth that.
Mhm.
And so you got to kind of talk them down off the ledge if it's not worth that. So kind of speak to what drives the value in the land market.
Yeah, so um, when it comes to hunting ground, one of the most fundamental ingredients is the access for it. And traditionally, as a bow hunter, you want to hunt the winds that are coming from the north, winds that are coming from the west. That typically brings cooler weather, especially the northerly winds. And so when you can have access from multiple points to come in and maybe not educate or have the deer smell you as you're approaching the stand, that's a very key point to, I think, what drives value is your accessibility. Of course, if there's a building site there, if somebody can build a cabin or a home there in the future, if there's utilities there, it's not an act of God to excavate an area. So building site is a good ingredient. Um, Probably the most important is the history on the property. Did somebody over the years accumulate deer history with trail cameras or harvest photos? What is the history of the property and the wildlife there? Now, somebody like myself that is around this stuff all the time, I feel confident in being able to pick out areas where I can look at a farm and tell whether it's a really good hunting property without needing to see any trail cameras. There's ingredients that you look for whenever you're around this stuff enough.
What is that? Tell me those
Well, I mean,
ingredients.
it's say it's the type of cover. Does it have a limiting resource? Is it what does the connecting cover look like? What's the neighboring property? Where's the closest water source? What are ways that somebody could hunt this place and throughout the year without just blowing their farm out? When we go there, what's the deer sign look like? Is there a sign where we think it'll be, or is it kind of weak? All of these things without seeing, okay, these are the specific bucks that were here last year. And then over time, you just get experience in the regions, right? Where are the kind of the special regions of the state. Um, but that certainly helps when you're going to showcase your property for sale, is having history of the past and what's been on it.
Yeah, sure, sure. Um, uh, talk about, as far as, do you have people call, I mean, is there an area like a county or a certain area? It kind of me sounds like South Central Iowa, but is there any other ones or a specific area that people say, call you up and say, Ben, I'm wanting to buy a deer hunting farm and I want it to be in this area. Is there a certain area that maybe is more popular than other areas? Can you kind of speak to that, Ben?
Yeah, I would say, yeah, I mean, Van Buren County in my territory of Southeast Iowa, Van Buren County is still, and it has been for a while, the go-to county for as a destination county to be in. It's just big country down there. I don't think there's a stoplight in Van Buren County. I mean, it is beautiful, wild, rolling country.
Yep.
And you can say the same thing for Davis County just to the west.
Right.
Uh, when you get into Jefferson County, there's amazing country there, but there's also a lot of really good crop ground there in Jefferson County. And the same with Henry. You got the Skunk River that comes down through uh, southwest Henry County. But as you go east and north, you get into Cannon Township and the best of the best, right?
Right.
Flat Black. So I would say that I get asked a lot about Van Buren County. Lee County is another really rugged one. Of course, Monroe because of Albia and the world record buck that was killed there, and the ranch, the 3,600 acre farm that was there. A number of people over the years that have put these counties on the map through hunting content, whether they write, they have a television show, a YouTube channel. And so, you'll hear Van Buren, you'll hear Monroe, you'll hear Decatur County. But make no mistake, it's not about the name of the county. It is not. It's all about the composition of the farm and what's going on around it. And so some of the absolute most incredible places I have sold have been places that, you mention a town or two, and people are like, "Well, I don't, where's that at?" Even if they live in Iowa. So,
Mhm. What about over there in the Lowest Hills? How's that area over there?
man, I tell you, I've not been over there. That's the one part of Iowa where I really haven't spent any time. Uh, it looks to be amazing
It
country.
does.
I did hear that the population got destroyed last year with the HD to the point where in some counties they're not even selling doe tags. Last year they didn't sell any doe tags. Same thing this year. They got to let that population build back up. But that country over there near the Missouri River looks amazing.
Yeah,
Amazing.
I drive through there appraising farms and I'm like, man, there looks like there's some really good deer hunting here.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Um, Ben, talk about, the interest rates environment. Do you think we're going to see an interest rate increase or kind of what your thoughts and then as far as like is there a specific amount of income your buyers are telling you they'd like to have, maybe a certain amount like 10% crop or 50% crop, so they got some income on that property. Can you kind of speak to that?
Yeah, I can't speak too much on on the interest rates, on what they're going to do. It's been this back and forth rubber band ping pong conversation for a long time, right? About what interest rates are going to do.
Right, right, right.
Um, what I can speak more on is the income conversation on farms, on these rec farms. And see, when I started, the two income drivers, for people listening to this, the two main income drivers for the type of land that we sell in the Corn Belt here for rec ground is cash rent farm ground, typically row crop or hay, and conservation reserve program. The conservation reserve program is a program that incentivizes the landowner to receive a payment to keep their highly erodible land
Mhm.
out of tillable production, to prevent erosion, in soil, water quality conservation. So, so you get a payment, and that payment for CRP is correlated to the average county cash rent for that year, um, or for the last few years. Well, what drives cash rent? Cash rent is driven by the commodity
Right.
markets, the
Corn and
corn and bean
soybean
markets.
prices. Yep.
So to stay competitive with CRP and incentivize somebody to keep their land or keep their fields in CRP or put them into CRP, it needs to stay up there with the cash rent. So when I started, CRP contracts were 150 an acre
Hmm.
to 220 an acre. In general, that was the range. You would see some really high ones that are, say, wetland CRP, over 300 an acre
Hmm.
for this stuff. But that was the range. Okay, and then land prices were 2,500 to $3,000 an acre. Well, fast forward to now, and we have land prices in the mid five, say low fives to low sixes, right? 5 to 6 thousand per acre. The income amount is the same. Those CRP
Hmm.
contracts are still
Right,
150 to
right,
220.
right.
Well, whenever the sweet spot is where interest rates were low, your income was strong, you got the farm for a fair price, and you're almost cash flowing it.
Hmm.
You're not quite cash flowing it, but it's making a good bit of the
Right,
payments.
right.
The times have changed. The times have changed. So it's interesting to see, like, people don't buy hunting ground because it's an income producer, but it sure is nice to have something to supplement the cost of putting food plots in, to help pay their taxes, or just in general to justify
Right,
owning an asset.
right, right,
It's got to pay you something.
right,
So,
right,
that matters to people. Um, but again, it's not always going to be the same with these markets, you know.
right, right. Yeah, it's definitely changed. Like you said, that income stream has stayed the same on like CRP and but those prices sure have climbed the past, since COVID. They really jumped up there and pushed those cap rates down. And for sure happen. But it's amazing how strong those prices held in there with that income not
I
going.
know, I know, and yep. I mean, if there was a surge in supply, that's when you'd see the market come down. Would you agree with that?
Yep, yep,
Yeah,
yep,
yeah,
yep.
because it's
Um,
just too expensive to finance a property with these types of interest rates.
right,
You know,
exactly,
it
exactly, exactly. Ben, what do sellers, let's say a seller called you up and says, I'm thinking about selling some farm.
mhm.
What would you tell them? I want to sell it this fall, maybe.
Okay, I'd say, well, let me come take a look at it and see what you have. And I would encourage them to really be open with me about what are your goals here. It's not always about getting the highest price. I mean, yeah, we all want the highest price. Nobody says, "Well, I want to sell my place for cheap." Nobody says that.
Right,
But sometimes it's a time definite sale, right? Maybe they have to sell for 1031 purposes. Maybe they've already found their next investment and they're like, "Well, I for me to buy that place, I need to liquidate this other farm here."
right.
So there's time is value to some sellers. So we have to talk about that. Um, we're going to determine whether it makes sense to list the property or if we're going to auction it. And then we're going to talk about the current market in what similar type properties have sold for in this year and maybe at the tail end of last year, not 3 years ago. Just because the farm just down the road sold 3 years ago and it's the same type of pasture that you've got, it doesn't mean it's going to be the same price, same price this year. So I would really try to get a goal of what they want to do and and be super forward about the market because it's easy to just buy a listing with telling somebody your
That's right.
ground is worth
That's right.
an extra $1,000 an acre just because you don't want Whitetail Properties to get the listing or something. But that you're not doing anybody a favor by doing that. Um, yeah, it's that's the toughest part of my job, man, is balancing people's expectations and ultimately, getting the job done for them. Yep.
Right, right. And so, educating those sellers, I think is a big deal is make because all they hear is those high prices and that's what sticks in their head and they think their farm's worth that much. So you've got to educate them and you've got to show them other similar properties that have sold. And this is kind of where I'm thinking. You want to have those conversations before you list that property rather than when you list it and it's listed too high and you've got people not even checking it out because they say it's too high. I'm
Yeah.
not going to buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure, for sure.
Yep.
As far as buyers, if a buyer called you up and said, Ben, I'm looking for a farm, I want to buy a farm, I want some income, I want some good deer hunting, I'd like to have it by this fall so we can go deer hunting on it. What would you tell them?
Yeah, I'd say it's a phenomenal time to buy. It really is. And I would say it's still a very good period right now in July, right? So you're going to be a 30 to 45 day closing typically, depending on whether it's a cash deal or you're going to finance it with a lender. So we got time, and we're going to try to figure out where do you want to be. Are you moving? Now I work with several people that move here. They retire here. They want to have a chapter of time being a resident in Iowa, and they're maybe a little more free to find that really good farm, regardless of where it's at. So uh, we're going to hone in on their criteria, what their top end of what they can afford, what's something that maybe they don't want to mess with, what are their goals ultimately, and then we're going to get in the truck and go look at some places, you know,
Yeah.
and really dive in. We're going to get the bug spray on. We're going to probably double layer because of the mosquitoes
Hmm.
and take a bunch of water and go look at ground.
Do you ride
So
them around in a side by side or walk
yeah.
or how do
Oh
you
yeah.
do that?
Yeah, I do. I just last week I showed an 80 of all timber during this heat wave, and we walked to every property corner on that place. It was brutal, but it's critical for people that are really really wanting to understand the habitat to dive in and look at it. Go find the deer sign in that back corner where you can't drive a side by side.
Uh-huh.
So the UTV is a great tool, but so is the machete and boots on the ground.
Yep, yep. No, good stuff. One thing about recreational properties as an appraiser that I've gotten into is some of the houses that's put on these properties. And
Yeah.
what I mean by a house is a shop and a house. It's like a Morton building with living quarters, and then it's got a shop area or a machine shed tied to it. Some of these are just unbelievably nice. And can you kind of speak to that a little bit? How that has changed over time?
Oh yeah. 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 I mean, people want to have a good, comfortable experience and sometimes a high-end experience on their hunting property. Um, what I tell people, I guess, if they're seeking my advice with what they should build, I always err on the side of utility and some of the conveniences that are almost requirements at this point. You know, you want to you want a heated shop. You want to maybe it's a barn door with uh, living quarters and a nice view across the farm or something like that on a slab, so you don't have to dig a basement, right? You can build these things and be very utilitarian. Um, and I've seen everything from places that, you know, even my wife, who's not very picky, so she wouldn't want to go into. And then there's these other places that are just absolute showcases. Nothing like
Yeah,
if you get, you know, you
I've
get down
seen them.
into the South where it's next level. I mean, I don't really see that very often. But then on the other hand, if you're buying a property or you're wanting to sell your property that has a really nice improvement on it, I tend to set people up initially saying that, listen, you're going to need, if we're looking at the price per square foot for that improvement plus the price per acre for land, we need to be a little more conservative on both. Because to find somebody that's going to pay an absolute peak value for both is pretty rare.
Right,
We're
right,
looking at the
right.
full package. So it can be great for a turnkey experience. But if you're going to build one and you're going to build your dream home, just make sure that you plan on being in it for a while um, uh, before you get too crazy with it. So it's a great way to experience your recreation, your farm though. I mean, being able to stay there on the farm, wake up in the morning, step outside and see the place come alive. There's nothing like that. I mean, it's incredible. And that's really, I mean, with my son, you know, we spend a lot of time at the farm. I'm that farm is giving him a lot more than what, you know, a lot more life lessons than just how to shoot a gun or how to gut a deer, you know, and when you have a place to stay, you can kind of unlock that experience for yourself or loved ones.
Yeah, yeah. Um, Ben, I just a couple more questions. Talk about briefly how has your business changed since COVID? Just talk about the biggest changes you've seen.
Um,
What did that
well,
change for you?
um, well, it changed the amount of ground we sold. I mean,
Meaning
I
it
hate
went way
cold.
up,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Increased the amount,
yeah.
and your
It,
buyer
it
pool grew.
the buyer pool increased significantly. People wanted to like they valued the outdoors more than ever during COVID. And they also valued having a tangible asset, an investment that's not a mutual fund
Uh-huh.
or the stock market. Being able to like actually say or feel and step on your investment. I mean, it that is kind of cliche at this point. Buy land, they're not making any more of it. But if you think about what that means, it's a fundamental principle of investment. And so people in just the short time after COVID, people were buying land when they didn't even know why they were buying it. It was like the hottest thing. You heard about the Bill Gates article that came out right after COVID, and Bill Gates is one of the biggest farmland owners in the country. And people just jumped on that and said, well, if he owns all that ground and he's not a farmer, if he owns that farmland, I should be doing that too. He's a smart man. So it was a black swan event, is what it was, um, in the short period of time. That coincided with me already growing my business, having a partnership with Rich, bringing something new to the table for him. Like, and it was big. It was big. Um, Now we're what, 6 years post COVID, and we're seeing things chill out. We're
Yeah.
seeing the ramifications of all the money that was printed, all the free money that everybody was given. Right? It changed the value of the dollar, and we're seeing the ramifications of that now.
Yep, yep, yep. Well, one of the my reason, I've got to give reasons why the land market's so stable in an ag economic environment that's not so good right now. Low corn prices, high input costs, etc., higher interest rates. Um, because there's so much money plugged into the system, the M2 money supply got jacked up with cash. And it's still a hangover from that. Yeah, there's issues out here with some farmers. Typically, it's those the guys that cash rent a lot of ground, don't own a lot of ground. Those are the guys, yeah, they're hurting right now. This is not a good environment. But the guys that have owned their land for a while, they're doing okay. And they
Hmm.
still have cash left over from that money infusion. So that's part of the reason why I think the market's held up so strong in a tough
Hmm.
economic environment.
Hmm.
Um, Now, Ben, one more question. As I appraise recreational tracts, I have people say, I had a timber cruise done on that farm and there's $90,000 worth of timber on that. And in their mind, they think, okay, so that I've got the value of that land plus the value of that timber. To me, they're double counting. So can you talk about that? How that should be looked at? Because people will do timber cruises and they get this big number from the timber appraiser that this is what the timber's worth, and
Hmm.
they think, well, that should increase my value by that much. Does it work that way, Ben? Can you speak to that?
Yeah, it doesn't at all. Um, the timber on the property is the reason why it's recreational ground, right? Why it's and so if somebody were to remove that resource, right? That's one of the tools in the toolbox of land. And if you would remove that resource, then nobody's really going to see the value there whenever you remove the resource. Now, another thing is that when you cut a property, when you cut the timber, man, it really roughs it up and makes it look bad for a while. Now, on the back side of that, it can become even better for wildlife, and particularly the deer. When you log a property in certain areas, when you log it responsibly, it can make some really great diversity within the woodlands. But uh, a property isn't worth the recreational value plus an extra amount for logging. And if you're going to sell a property, don't log it beforehand, because you might, let's say you have 100 acres, right? And it's worth 5,500 an acre. So your place is worth $550,000, 5,500 an acre. But then you've got, you know, oh, I can log this place and make 30 grand. Well, okay, you might make 30,000 bucks, but you might affect the value and the desirability of that place by $1,000 an acre,
Hmm. Right.
right? Or more. I've seen it firsthand. People feel like you're taking away the resource of why they're interested in it in the first place. So, yeah, it just doesn't work that way. Of course, if you have an extremely valuable stand of walnuts and white oaks,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
have this timber appraisal, you want to have that for a buyer, and maybe you ask if the rest of the ground justifies it, you ask a premium to an extent for it. Maybe you don't build maximum price, but that's a good selling tool is to say, here's what the actual tangible timber basis is worth. So,
So you're saying it's a tool in your toolbox, but don't
absolutely.
think it adds to the value of your property. And one
Yes.
thing I'd like to say is I look at that timber when it's intact, it's real estate. But when you cut it down, it's personal property then, right?
Yeah. Well, exactly, because you're taxed income tax on it as
That's
well.
that's right.
Yeah.
So I've had people that I've had to praise, and I'm like, yeah, that's you definitely got some valuable walnut, white oak, etc. But I can't value that farm and then add that value of that timber appraisal. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you one thing, how I got educated on that a number of years ago. I had to appraise a bunch of it wasn't farm ground, islands in the Mississippi River.
Oh,
There is a guy over there in eastern Iowa that, for some whatever reason, he loved buying islands in the Mississippi River. So the only way to get to them was by boat.
sure.
And they were all just, they were deer hunting properties for him. And, uh, and so as I did my sale research, I found out that those islands that had been logged were worth $500 an acre less than the ones that had the timber intact. And that was pretty easy to see that in those sales that I had found.
Yeah.
So it
No
does
doubt.
affect your value. If, like you said, if you take those logs out of there and collect that money, it will affect the value of that farm. So if
Yeah.
you're getting top dollar, leave it intact is what I'm saying. It sounds like that's what you're saying too.
Yeah. Yeah. Part of it is the aesthetic beauty of a farm. And when you feel when it appears that you've removed that, it just makes it less desirable.
Yep, yep. Ben, we better finish things up. Anything else you want to say about this fall and what anything else you want to add to the conversation?
Yeah, man, I think I'm good. I really appreciate you having me on, Jim. I really value your knowledge. I mean, you've helped me from the beginning with land values and talking about how to price maybe a particular place. So I've really enjoyed getting to know you and sharing sharing our expertises with each other. If anybody wants to like see a little bit more what I'm about, I mean, I sell land for a living. It's how I feed my family and it's more of a lifestyle than a job. But my true passion is whitetail hunting. And if somebody wanted to see any of my hunts, you could go on YouTube and search my name. And I have my own channel now. It's been a way for me to kind of showcase my passion for land ownership is with my YouTube channel.
What's the name of
Uh,
your YouTube channel?
it's just at Ben Harshyne.
Okay.
And so if you search my name on YouTube, you'll it's also where I showcase my listings. It's kind of a living portfolio for me of my work. We shoot a listing for every one of or a video for every one of my listings, and I put it on YouTube, and and my hunts are on there as well. So if anybody is curious more about what I'm about, the type of animals that I'm around, especially if you're considering a purchase in southern Iowa, if you're interviewing somebody to represent you in a hunting land purchase, maybe check that out and you'll see a little bit of what I'm about. But really appreciate the platform here to talk with you today, Jim.
One other question, Ben. I just thought of this. I get a lot of questions on how much of a lease should I get per acre for recreational land. Can you
Mm-hmm.
speak to that real quick? Kind of not exact numbers, but a range for high quality, medium, and low quality. Can you just speak to that real briefly?
Yeah, I would say at this point, 20 to 40 an acre, but I mean, it could even be 10 an acre. Like it just all depends on the farm. You might have a 300 acre pasture with a nice ditch going through it, and you're not going to be hunting the 230 acres of open grassland. So do you really price that as a price per acre for the entire farm or just for the cover? but in general, I used to lease a farm that was uh, um, it was a big one. It was about 700 acres, and our lease that whenever we leased it, it was like it was primarily a crop farm, but we were still at, I believe, $15 an acre for that. So
Hmm.
it's just a case by case.
Right, right.
But
But
if you go across the river, man, it's out of control in Illinois. It's crazy.
is that
Um,
right?
there's a
Talk,
bit.
give me a range.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard 60 to
Wow.
$80 an acre just to literally have the rights to hunt it for the and people outfitters are using it for their business model, to sell hunts off of it. But we don't
Mhm.
really have that here in Iowa. It's not a great game to business being as an outfitter in Iowa because you don't have repeat clients very often
Right,
because of the preference points. But
right, right.
yeah, yeah. I
Yep.
mean, there's still we don't get involved in leasing. I don't really. It's not part of my business, but I have connected people over the years with leases occasionally, and that's what I've seen is 20 to 30, maybe 40 if it's super super good ground.
Yeah, and the positives of that, if, to me, if you're an absentee landowner, that is some income, likely would pay your taxes of that property, maybe even more. But if you want to keep people off your farm, lease it out to a hunter, because I guarantee you 100% they will not let anybody on that farm.
No doubt.
And make that leasee buy insurance, make sure they got insurance, liability insurance or whatever, so you're protected. So I think there is benefits if you're an absentee loaner if you don't hunt, to leasing that farm out.
Agreed.
So yeah, yeah, Ben, if somebody wants to talk to you about selling a farm or buying a farm, how do they get a hold of you? I've got your profile here up on the screen, but I'll just
Yeah.
let you go ahead and say that.
Yeah, right there, whitetailproperties.com. Search Iowa and you'll find me, and my number's there. And I try to be as available as possible uh, for anybody who wants to reach out.
Yep, yep. And I will say one thing, Ben is a straight shooter and he answers his phone or responds to his emails, and he is very knowledgeable and works for a great company. And so I would highly recommend, if you're a buyer or seller, to contact him.
Hey, thanks a lot, Jim. Much appreciated.
All right, Ben. Well, we're going to wrap this session of Land Talker TV. If you watch this, make sure and hit the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment. So please do that. And Ben, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay, thanks again.